So here we go, boys. Let's try to compare the AIM-120C-5 to the R-77-1. Both of the best radar missiles in the game, okay? So, of course, we can, look at StatShark. We can try to draw conclusions from theory. But actually looking at the missiles will make the biggest difference when comparing them, right? And also, guys, we gotta think that, yeah, the R-77-1 will clearly be best in the shorter ranges, right? Because, of course, it has basically the same amount of energy, and that's what we're going to talk about, but it has better turn. But the major thing for a BVR missile is not turn, guys. It's actually how it can deal with the very long-range energy deployments that a missile needs when it's actually facing a 50-kilometer shot, right? So, we are here. Yes, we are in a replay on the dev server, and we're gonna check it out just like we did with the AA systems, the energy levels basically of these missiles. Of course, energy in missiles and in aircraft, of course, also arguably, right? It is very much measured by speed, right? Basically, think about speed as a bank of energy that the missile has to use and try to turn. So let's try to compare the energy. The more energy it has, the better it would do on that range that we are comparing if it needed to turn and get a target. So it doesn't matter that the R-77-1, is a better missile at short ranges and can turn 50 Gs, if in reality it will have less energy, for example, than the AIM-120C-5, because it will not be able to get to those 50 Gs anyway, right? So not even the 35 of the AIM-120. So yeah. That's the idea of the video, just like we did with the AA. So we did these tests shooting at bots, of course, in different speeds the bots were, but it won't change too much, okay? The idea will be the same. It's just that it's very hard to make bots fly the way that you want, right? But yeah, we're gonna fire an R-77 and try to kind of notice the speeds that the missile has and the flight that it will actually do. So let's just go very far away. These tests, by the way, were done at Mach 1, 10 kilometers altitude, 50 kilometer shot. Both of the tests, okay? Why do I do that? Just for you to know. This is to limit variables, of course, right? So the same map, same day, same temperature, of course, same speed, same altitude, same distance of the target. Minor difference on the target itself, so there's still difficulties on trying to limit the variables, but it is as close as we can get, okay? So we're gonna wait. We are waiting for the 50-kilometer shot over here, and you will see we're gonna just back away over here because these missiles are very quick, and we're gonna try to see, missile launched. We're gonna try to see how much speed these missiles get from certain places, okay? So the max speed will be the first test. Let's take it down the time. So Mach 3 there. 3.4, okay, 4.31, 4.32. That was the max speed of the R-77-1. Very fast missile, of course. And yeah, let's see how it deals with the energy loss. So we're gonna try to have in mind what are the travel distances with the speed. So we're gonna have some numbers in mind. So for example, at 10 kilometers, let's see. Waiting. Oh. 10 kilometers, 3.74. So this is actually pretty good. I will actually write this down a little bit because if not, there's so many values that I'm just gonna forget all of them. So let's continue. Let's see at around 20 kilometers of a flight travel. Of course, we can even increase the speed here to not waste too much time of your time and my time, of course. There we go, 20 kilometers, Mach 2.6, so it is a pretty fast missile, as you see, so it will maintain very well the energy compared to something like the normal R-77, right? If we would to compare that, it would be a lot worse, right? So let's wait for 30 kilometers. You can see that it's slowing down heavily. Remember, guys, although the missile will still have energy below Mach 1, think about them as subsonic as a only if the target is not moving kind of speed, okay? So I like to bring the Mach 1 as a comparable speed here so that we can actually have an idea that if the target maneuvers Mach 1 it won't matter too much. You know, the missile will miss, okay? So let's try to see at 30 kilometers how much it traveled, the speed. So we're getting there. 30 kilometers, Mach 1.5. So you can see that we are already very, very slow. Very, very slow. Mach 1.5 is not fast for a missile. It still can get kills, but it is a lot harder. And let's wait now to below like Mach 1. So subsonic speeds. We're gonna wait and measure this speed as well. So there you go. So at 34.9 kilometers, it is already at subsonic speeds. Okay, so yeah, it's not the greatest thing ever, but it's not bad at these speeds, at these distances. Of course, if you go faster with the aircraft, it will be better, right? Of course, here, like I said, I mean, it still can maintain some level of energy around Mach 1 there, but if the target moves around like 2-3 Gs, it won't be able to do much, okay? It won't be able to turn much. It will get the kill. Now we're gonna take a look on the AIM-120C-5 to compare the levels of energy that the missile has. Because again, we know that the 77, he likes to turn more. It is a 50G missile. Of course, it will turn more. And having more energy than the R-77 means that it can continue to do that 50G for a longer period of time. The AIM-120C-5 will do less than that. But at the longer distances where BVR missiles really, mean a lot, because if not, you are using IR missiles from up close, right? This is where I think kind of stuff changes. So let me just get to the speed and altitude that we were. So here we go again. We are getting close to the launch. I'm gonna pause it when I launched, of course. So we just launched. The first thing that we're gonna take a look is the max speed. Remember, the R-77 did Mach 4.3, okay? So let's see the max speed that the 120C-5 gets. It's, I think, very similar it's gonna be. I wouldn't think that it's too different. It's different. Okay, so this is interesting. So no loft or anything because the targets are lower than you. This is a normal scenario about here, guys, because of course the AIM-120C-5, for example, has a very aggressive loft parameter. Just remember that. But in real games, unless somebody's really flying high, the missile won't loft anyway, right? So this is a more realistic take on how a launch would be at 50 kilometers. But just remember that the C-5 will maintain a lower airspeed when the target is flying very high, higher than you maybe, because it will climb a lot. And then at the later stages, it will maintain a little bit more energy. That's a little bit of a thing that we need to talk about. But it is a slower missile, as you see on the same parameters, Mach 3.72, Mach 3.8, something like that, which is a lot less than what I was expecting, actually. The R-77-1 did Mach 4.3. So the R-77 initially a lot faster. Remember, this means the missile will have more energy in the shorter ranges as well. Let's wait and see at 10 kilometers of distance how the energy was. So it's already getting closer. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. So 10 kilometers, Mach 3.38. Again, lower than the R-77-1, but the numbers are getting closer. The R-77 did a 3.74, so it's like around 0.4 more speed that the R-77-1 has. But remember, lower ranges, the R-77 will have the advantage. Let's see, I traveled 20 kilometers to see if we can see any real differences over here. And I think the longer we will go, the more difference will be in favor for the C-5. So 20 kilometers, see, it's getting closer. It's getting closer. The C-5 did 2.54 Mach, while the R-77-1 did a 2.6. So pretty much the same speed. What does that mean? It means that from 0 to 20 kilometers, normally at these, of course, these altitudes, distances, everything, right? Of course, it would be, advised to change these numbers depending on the shot. Of course, if it was from a 0 altitude perspective, it would be a different number, but the idea would be the same, okay? It's just that the number would be lowered. But basically, from 0 to 20 kilometers, the R-77-1 has a lot more energy. Not a lot, but it has more energy, right? And it has more ability of turning better because of that, okay? It has the 50 Gs and also more energy. So if you are shooting a missile against something that is firing an R-77-1, just remember, if you're using the C5, you're probably going to lose in a 1v1 same scenario situation if it is below 20 kilometers at these altitudes and speeds. That's the idea, right? So the R-77-1 better in the lower ranges. But look at this. This is what I'm expecting. Of course, the C5 becoming better. Let's see at 30 kilometers of flight time over here, of traveled distance rather than time, of course. We are at already 26, 27. Let's wait at 30. Come on. There we go. 30 kilometers. And guess what? The C5 is faster. So 1.66 Mach, while the R-77-1 did a 1.5. So yeah, again, the differences are very, very small. And they are, remember this, they are smaller than the difference in the get-go to 20 kilometers from the R-77 to the C5. So yeah, the C5, it is not that different from the B model and the A model of the 120. But at the same time, it is on par in the very long ranges to the R-77, and even better depending on the distance, but it loses on the shorter ranges. Let's see if we can get the Mach 1 energy over here. The targets were a little bit quicker, and the missile is turning over here. So eventually just hit the target at around the same energy, but it will continue to have the same idea over here, okay? It will continue to have basically a little bit of an advantage. Mach 2, 0.2, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 max of a change between what the R-77-1 did to the C5, okay? And this is the idea, guys. What can we draw from this? Is that the C5, this missile right here, that it's right there, it is better than the R-77-1 in a general perspective when above 20 kilometers. It will take more time to get there. It will take more time. This is very important for you to understand. This missile is a slower missile than the R-77-1, which means that if you are going head-to-head with a target, again, the R-77, if you don't move, will get to you first. Okay, but there is some things that we can draw from this. The C5 will be able to maintain better energy, meaning that although we will get there later, it will actually have more energy to attack a target that it's moving around, that it's trying to avoid a missile. Second thing is that the R-77-1 with its higher drag means that if you do a crank, if you do a notch or something like that, it will mean that the C5 would have a better chance of getting a target that it's doing those maneuvers than the R-77-1 from the get-go, you know? So although, yes, the R-77 will have more energy, because you are making the missile turn so much and it has way more drag than the C5, it means that eventually that drag will bite the R-77, and it means that the C5 will be better. So at the end of the day, against a non-moving target, the R-77 can be better, but the C5 gets there, and if he moves, it will be better. So technically the C5 is the best missile by not a very big margin, by a very small margin in BVR conditions. In close conditions, it is the R-77 for a bigger margin. Okay, so the R-77 in general is a better missile because it can do way better dogfight maneuvers, and it's good enough for the long range, while the C5 is better than the R-77-1 by a small margin in the far ranges and worse than the R-77-1 in the close ranges. This is my kind of line of thinking here that was kind of corroborating with StatShark, okay? So it makes sense. It makes sense. So we did the test, and it's pretty much what we see there. So you can believe on those numbers a little bit. The graphs are kind of you know, sometimes it feels like the missile should be doing more than it is doing and stuff, because you see some graphs of loft and stuff, but it's okay. The numbers themselves, they are pretty correct, okay? So this is my idea on the C5 against R-77-1. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you thought about it. And yeah, bye guys. See ya.